thanks for coming on, being willing to chat with me.
Absolutely.
You're spoken very highly of by Samuel, but he also speaks really highly of me, and so I don't know how much weight we can really put in that. We'll
Uh,
see.
Samuel's a good dude. He's a good dude. We had a lot of fun together when we worked together. Um, I think he's gonna have such a great career.
Yeah, I hope so. He keeps jumping ship on us. He jumped ship on me before he jumped ship on you. So,
Oh, were you with him at the
Comcast,
at Comcast? Okay,
all
so
the way back
from
at Comcast.
okay, and there he went to MapQuest, right?
Yeah, System One, MapQuest. Yeah,
Oh yeah, System One. I I only associate it with MapQuest because that is like one of the craziest ideas of a place to work in the current world.
yeah, agreed. But yeah, anyway, we're not here to talk about Samuel. We're here to talk about you. I'm very interested to hear kind of your backstory. This all got started because I just don't get out a whole lot. I work from home. I work in my basement. So I went to the Laracon US this year and got to
Okay.
experience a real developer conference kind of for the first time. And just realized there was a lot of more people out there with a lot of really interesting stories. And I didn't really have a good way to hear them because I live in my basement. um, and
I mean,
so
do you like live full time in your basement, or it's just like it's a workplace, right? Like it's not a
it's definitely a workplace. My wife would probably like me to come upstairs more. um, but
well,
yeah, so
living
that's kind of
living in
how.
San Diego, like we don't have basements. I'm honestly
Oh,
super jealous. Super jealous. We my wife and I went out to Colorado. I mean, this was before we had a kid. Um and we were looking at the houses out there and I'm like these are all like bigger. Like we were looking at like new construction and some of the stuff that was being built in just like the Denver area. And I was like it seems like there's so much more here. And her uncle, the guy that we were out there with, explained it's because these have basements and they're like walkout basements and they're finished and it's like a usable space versus like you know our 1,600 square foot house here is 1,600 square feet, period. And it's like there is no extra 1,600 square feet below it. Like you get exactly what you pay for and nothing more.
yeah, I believe it. So I actually relocated. I'm not in Denver anymore either. I'm actually out in Michigan now. But yeah,
Oh, no
the
kidding.
basement, the basement situation is still just incredible. In Colorado, when we were house shopping out there, it was really interesting to me that a lot of listings don't even list the square footage of the basement, which always like confused me because you'd get this listing and the listing would be like, it's 750 square feet. And you're like, it's 3 bedrooms. Where are the other two?
You can't count the bedroom and then not count that square footage. Like that's kind of a strange. That's a strange thing. But yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah, I'm super jealous of areas that have the geology to support a basement. Uh, I'm just never gonna have that. I'll get over it.
That's fair. You've got other things.
We do have, like we're coming into winter now, and it's like I can go outside in the middle of the day, and it's gorgeous, and that won't be the case in a lot of places across the country pretty soon here.
Yeah, we're already getting out of that now. So today's a heat wave, 76 outside.
Oh wow,
So I don't know.
doing good
Yeah. But all right, let's get to where we're going. So
for sure.
I know nothing about you, which is very exciting to me. I told my wife, I was like, this is the most like nervous I've been for one of these interviews yet. Because like every other person I've interviewed, I've either interacted with like a little bit online or like had some sort of like interaction with, but we've never met before today. We've never spoken. I guess we emailed back and forth a couple of times, but
That's
I'm very
true. That's
interested.
true.
Um, so kind of where we're going, where we'll start. If you just want to tell me, like, where did you first get involved with computers, and maybe also kind of throw in like what was the impetus like behind you starting to try it out or look at programming as a whole?
So there there are two parts. So there's like my kind of childhood initial introduction to programming or computers or kind of however you want to say it. And then there's when I started my career, which is only like 6 or 7 years ago. So initially, like when I was a kid, um, like my dad was a he called himself a technologist, which is a obnoxious term for just somebody who was kind of an early adopter and liked computers and stuff. Like before that was really much of a thing. So we were, the first people in our area to get like internet and a computer and like a dedicated phone. This is the days I am elderly. So like 28.8 BPS modem. Like we're talking ancient level stuff here. So like nothing came over copper lines for quite a while, let alone fiber. So anyway, so like I had this kind of introduction to technology that was like very pro technology, very like this is something that we want. This is not something that we're afraid of. This is not something that we're that is inaccessible to us. So I had I was fortunate in that way where like this was something that I had access to and was able to do and was kind of interested in. And so like things progressed, and then maybe sometime in my early like preteens or so, like MySpace was around, AOL Instant Messenger was around. So like it started to become maybe a touch of what it is today, where social media became this alternate reality, um, where you could interact with people. And so I was definitely involved in that. You want to customize your MySpace page, and so you learn a little HTML, you learn a little CSS, this sort of stuff. I don't recall that being very significant for me. The one significant experience that I can remember is my dad was working for a company that was trying to build interactive video. Um, so, so they were contracted primarily with like police and military, but if you consider like the use cases for interactive video are primarily training at the time, and so they were like interactive video training for police and military, and I for whatever reason at a very young age was just handed an internship there, which is like have a cubicle, have a have a computer, which is like way nicer than anything I could access now. And I think at the time they had like a render farm with like Silicon graphics machines like handling renders. And so they were like, here's I think it was 3D Max at the time was the software I used. And they were like, build a thing. Like they walked me through like this is some of the software. And like just build a thing. Like they didn't expect anything from me. And to be totally fair, like absolutely nothing useful came from me. But I had this like early exposure to technology, and so that I think was kind of the roots of it. Um, Later, which maybe we'll get into like later in the podcast. Uh, I had like a pressing need, we'll say, to get more serious about it. But that was definitely my initial exposure to anything uh, technology, programming, computer based stuff.
Nice, nice. It's really interesting. So, almost every single person I've interviewed, so you'll be my 14th interview, I think 13 of you have all referenced MySpace as being something that you recall doing, like
Oh, that's
HTML,
perfect.
CSS.
That's
So
perfect.
I don't like and everyone says the same thing. I did MySpace. I don't really feel like it was very like beneficial for my career, but I did it.
Yeah, for sure, for
But it was
sure.
memorable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh man, now that I'm thinking about it, so like I have a slight like I don't work in the security space, but I do have a slight bent towards security. But there was always this attempt. So like 1995, the movie Hackers came out. This is foundational for anybody who was around at the time and had touched a computer. Like, You absolutely wanted to be Dade Murphy or serial killer or any of these other characters. Like you absolutely, I don't know, maybe I just hung out with weirdos. I definitely hung out with weirdos, but still to this day, I think the movie holds up, except for some lines here and there that are probably not so great anymore. Anyway, there was definitely a temptation. I lacked the commitment and determination to like follow through with it, but I just really wanted to be a hacker for a period of time. And I remember war dialers and port scanners, and I would yeah. There's like a statute of limitations. It's probably fine to talk about now. But I would definitely go through. So when I just had no idea like where these things were. So they're like across state lines, and I'm like very popular. I don't know if you remember this. Um,
I
okay,
think I
so
do.
Sub 7 was like a really popular like backdoor Trojan horse type of utility, and it had infections, and it had a very persistent port that it would leave open. I don't think I've ever talked about this publicly. Um, so,
Redacted
uh,
if we have to.
okay, that's fine. No, but and like once in a while I would, and so like we'd have hackers on, me and a buddy, and like we'd be have the port scanner going in the background while we're doing this, and there were a few times where I would find open ports, and it would let you do stuff like change the background in Windows, or like open the start menu, or like shut it down, or like put some full screen message on to it was more of a toy than something that was actually malicious. Like you had access to the system, like you could look through their files if you had that intent. I really didn't understand that that's something that computers were used for at the time, and didn't fully comprehend like the depth of you know but anyway, yeah, so that was definitely a part of it too. There was like uh this sense of power that came with it that I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of the really early like hacks and viruses, I've done a little bit of research. I actually am in the security space, so I have to know
Oh
some of
hell
this
yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
But a lot of the early ones really were just simple things where they were like, "Hey, I want to go in, and every time I find something, I'm gonna, change the third letter or something." Or like every time they'd reach a certain file, they'd play the ding noise, like the Windows ding. And so like that was a big part of early hacker culture, was they'd do all these like, it was essentially just jokes, and then later they would
Yeah.
become more malicious as they kind of went on. So that's cool. So getting your start, not quite a hacker, on MySpace. You got this internship at some point. How were you, in high school or college for the internship?
I think I was in middle school. I mean, I was
Middle
I was
school.
really young, like really really young. So yeah, this was all middle school. So if we want to like get much beyond this, probably don't need to like throw a content warning out there or anything. But like I right after middle school, right getting into high school, like just dove straight into drugs. Like this became a like for some reason safe haven is the word that comes to mind, even though it is not safe. Um, but like that became, we'll call it a primary focus for me for a few years. Been a few years drinking, doing drugs, getting kicked out of schools, and really just not focused on much of anything other than uh, like the acquisition, trade, and usage of drugs. By the time I was like 16, 17, landed myself in treatment. I had been in and out of a couple of hospitals for some overdoses on some drugs. We don't really need to get into the specifics of that, but like, you know, it's out there. I started a process of recovery that remains today. So it's been 24 plus years, right? Totally clean, totally sober. So from that point, I'm now late in high school at a continuation school with no idea of what I want to do. My honest goal while I was doing that was like, I'm gonna be, like little suburban Pablo Escobar. Like I'm gonna be that guy. Like that was my goal. And so I had to kind of retool that because that just doesn't it just is not realistic, especially after getting clean. So I figure I am going to help people get out of where I'm at. Um, the people that I worked with when I got clean were incredible, great counselors, and so I worked with them for nearly 2 decades. Started a career, went to school, uh, got a certification in uh, substance abuse counseling. Um, Worked in acute psychiatric hospitals for quite a few years. Um, and at 18, 19 years old, this is a scary place to be, frankly, but also like, being where I'm at now, like it's a damaging place, both for patients and for staff. Like there is a lot of just like trauma going on there, and it is there are places to help people, but is some wild stuff that goes on there. So, worked my way through acute psychiatric, opened a private practice, worked with my partner for better part of a decade, and eventually we found ourselves in a position where the way that we had structured our program, insurance companies were starting to pay less and less and starting to push back more and more. We were not able to provide the care that we had previously provided, and I wasn't able to pay my bills. I mean, for the first time in in a very long career, I hit, 2 or 3 consecutive months where just nothing was coming in and there was nothing on the horizon, and I'm scared. We were in a fortunate situation where like, my month to month bills were very low at the time. Um, so we were able to kind of scrape through, but that freaked me out enough to think like, is this really something I'm going to be doing in 10 years? Is this really something I'm going to be able to sustain a family on? Like we didn't necessarily have the intention of having kids at the time, but like it's the kind of thing where you start to think, what are my priorities? Like this career is clearly like not feasible, and the corporate medical climate at the time made it so that the future was just bleak, right? So I find myself in that position, and I'm like, well, what can I do? I can't like go back and be Pablo Escobar. Like I can't like backtrack after years and working with hundreds of families and kids, and like that just uh, that's not going to work. But I did have a buddy who was a web developer. Like he went the traditional route. He went to college, got a CS degree, and was working for like the local power company at the time, right? Like he was doing some like account, uh, like UI work around accounts and like usage and some other stuff, and like some sort of like email, uh, like notice stuff. It's weird because we work together now and we still do kind of that same thing where it's like UI can really only go so far as like utility, and it's like yeah, we're sending people graphs. We're still sending people graphs and numbers and putting it on a page in a variety of ways. So this guy, I reach out to him and I'm like, look, this is the position I'm in. Uh, do you think I could learn to do what you do? Um, and I'm really lucky because he was not like gatekeepy. He wasn't like you really need to go to college. Like I see some of that sentiment out there, and it rubs me the wrong way because I feel like this career should be accessible. Um, but he was really welcoming and gave me lots of guidance and lots of help. And I started out uh, just generally on the open web, like looking at YouTube videos, trying to learn like generic, how do I do a programming? And that led me to Java, which no, that was a mistake. And so he kind of steered. He's like, maybe don't do that, and look for stuff on like web programming, JavaScript. Um, so he said, bet on JavaScript, and I think you'll be good. And he was right. I found freecodecamp.org, which is still around, still nonprofit, an amazing program. They've completely like so the students who go through there uh, contribute back to the program, and like what they've built is so much more amazing than any kind of learning that I took away from it. Um, is really really cool. But I I did their kind of basic certification stuff and front end stuff. So I think they had like an HTML and a CSS and a JavaScript certification. I did that. I took some classes from Wes Boss. I went through all of his free material. I'm like, all right, is this dude legit? Like all his free material, and I'm going through it, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pay him $99 for his Intro to React course. And for me at the time, that was like a risk, right? Like I'm looking at I I might miss a mortgage payment. I might have to like call my mortgage company and be like, this is I'm in a bad spot, but like I'm buying like some class on the internet to maybe get a job sometime. Um so that's kind of how it started. Was just self-learning. I had some kind of like outside support. And uh Yeah, that was kind of the early experience there.
Awesome. All right, you've touched on a couple of things that I want to kind of go back through
Sure.
because there's a couple I'm interested in. So you said you did eventually get a degree. Was that degree in like clinical psychology, or what was your actual degree in?
Oh, no, no, no. So I got so in California you can get what's called a KDAC, which is a certification, right? So it involves like the educational equivalent of an associate's degree. It is a certificate program that I went through. So no, like I don't have I no degree. I did some college. Um, I spent a lot of time working in hospitals with like varying degrees of educated folks around me. A lot of people working on their PhD, a lot of master's level folks, nurses, BSNs. Dude, like the greatest respect in the world to nurses. Like these are people who like have very solid education paths that make absolute sense for what they're going to do. Like that career path is so solid, it's ridiculous. Anyway, but yeah, lots of psychologists, lots of psychiatrists, lots of MDs, DOs, those sorts of folks. And I decided that amount of education is just not something I was willing to do. One of my mentors got a PsyD, uh, and what he got out of this is he made people call him doctor. Like it's ridiculous, but it was also like a level of commitment to that career path that kind of looking back on it, I just don't think. Uh, I think maybe like I just wasn't that committed. So yeah, like educationally, yeah, like barely finished high school, we'll say.
Okay, so barely finished high school, certificate degree or
Mhm.
certificate program.
Yeah.
Would you say that any part of like, because you're working in this hospital for a little while, right? Would you say any part of how you interacted with that kind of helped shape how you would choose to do learning as you go forward? Because like you're getting like boot camps, like through web stuff. Do you feel like there were anything that you took away from that experience that helped you with your learning?
That's an interesting question. Maybe. I spent a lot of time providing care in inpatient and outpatient settings, and these were uh, group settings. And so we would do like process groups, but we'd also do education groups. And so I spent a lot of time in the education space, even though I wasn't technically a teacher. a lot of the material that you work with, especially in an outpatient program, is educational. As somebody that is like therapist adjacent, you start to get resentful of the idea like I'm going to go to a class, and it's like, no, it's not a class, because the expectation is not that you learn, it's that you change. Like, it is a fundamental difference between these two things. But without education, I don't think there would be change. And so I think your role as an educator in therapy, in a therapeutic setting or whatever, is absolutely paramount. And so yeah, I think it did. I actually have never even thought that thought, so thank you. Um, that's interesting. Yeah, I think it definitely did. Um, Specifically in one aspect, and that's that I was a very strong believer in group work and in going through a process, uh, and not being alone in that. Um, and so something that I found that was really helpful, not to go off on another tangent, but I'm about to, um, is the San Diego JS meetup locally here. Now, this was pre-COVID, uh, and it was a strong and vibrant community. I hear it's coming back, which is fantastic, because I think in-person uh, meetups, not necessarily work. I've got other opinions on work, remote work all day long, but in-person meetups, especially when you're early in learning, like was so foundational for me. Uh, reading reading documentation and doing walkthroughs, and even like watching YouTube videos can be super isolating. Like when that's what you're doing, and you have this very kind of limited perspective as you're going through that material, and being able to just hear other people, not necessarily interact. Like I'm uh, I'm a little uh, I'm initially a little shy when people meet me in person. I'm reserved. I like to observe before I start to interact and like kind of gauge how I want to do that. I can't get away with saying that I'm shy because I have a long history and career of public speaking. But that, I think, is pretty truthful. So like even just kind of just showing up to meetups and hearing other conversations happen, um, and hearing what other people were doing as far as like looking for work or finding work or this or that, like getting feelers for like what the local market is absolutely invaluable. So like I tried to incorporate some sort of sense of a group without paying. I think at the time, like a boot camp was like $12,000 or $25,000 out of your first year salary, like however they wanted to structure that.
Yeah,
It's
boot
still
camp.
crazy to me. Yeah.
Yeah, the boot camp stuff was insane. Actually, someone else that I interviewed went through the boot camp route, and like she got really lucky. Like she ended up coming out the other end like really well. But that was like the early boot camp days. Like nowadays, boot camps are not kind of in vogue anymore, I guess, as much.
Well, good. I think there were some problems there, but also like I think it made it accessible, and I think there's a lot of folks that just are not uh, they're not uh, self learners. How do I want to autodidacts, right? And that should be fine, because I don't think that's a requirement to be successful in his career. So like yeah, I think they absolutely have a place, but like it's unfortunate that they were abused to a point where like they 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 put people in very bad, like compromising financial positions. So yeah, those ones should definitely go away.
Yeah. All right. So you've kind of taken away some group learning stuff here. You've now gone off to start your own practice. Um, would you say that starting your own practice was something that kind of came naturally to you? Or do you feel like that was like this crazy hurdle that you had no idea how to do and you kind of just had to fight your way through it?
I did it on easy mode. So I had a partner. He had done this. He was basically like he had been working in under somebody else's practice for years, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna walk away from this and I'm gonna start my own thing. Are you with me?" And it was kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen Jerry Maguire. It's like, who's coming with me? And like 0 people were coming with him, and he's like, "What about this guy?" I'm like, Yeah, sure. Like, why not? What do I have to lose? Like, I'm still going to be able to work at the hospital, and so like I worked both ends of it for a long time, but I was at a stage in my life where like that's like I could, and so I had the benefit of uh, low risk, um, and so it was difficult because a lot of what people don't understand about being self-employed and having like your own business is that you become 100% of the marketing department, and uh, if you don't do that, you will not be successful. I mean, I think there are probably very few exceptions to that, right? Like, and I don't really like that aspect of any job. Like, the idea of freelancing in this career path sounds just as miserable as like having a private practice and needing to go to schools and talk to them about like, hey, do you have kids that are like having problems? Like, send them to this group that I have on your campus every week, like all this kind of stuff, right? Like we would host a lot of kind of public events and try to be present and helpful in that capacity as much as we could. But like, there's no doubt that that was also a marketing effort, and so like you start to have these mixed intentions. And in healthcare, I'm morally opposed to that. And I was at the time too, but I also needed to eat. So like it's difficult. I'm grateful not to be in that position anymore. But yeah, definitely there was that aspect to it.
Yeah. I think people maybe underplay the idea of like that sort of gray area between like what's marketing and what's this thing that you love and that you're passionate about. Like I even noticed that like with the podcast, like this podcast, right? Like
Yep.
I didn't want to start it because I was like, I feel like if I start a podcast, then it takes away from the fact that I'm interviewing these people because I'm actually interested in what they have to say. And like I told my wife, I was like, I don't really know if I want to like promote this podcast. Like I feel like if I start promoting it, then it somehow like cheapens it. Like it's become a commodity now.
So I had a podcast for a couple of years, The Function Call. Uh, I highly recommend it. I think we produced like a really amazing podcast. But the best part about it, and like we never promoted it, we never got sponsors, like we never did anything. I think we produced a very high quality thing, and we were actually just talking about it this past weekend. Um, yeah, the only difference between what we made and I don't think, oh God, what is it? Syntax, Scott Talinsky and Wes Boss's podcast, or one of the other, like none of us really had the million followers kind of level of influence thing happening, and so like we couldn't drive that kind of an audience. We had like a small audience. I think we had a lot of listens. I don't know, um, but we, that was the difference. That was just marketing. Um, but I'll tell you a secret. If you're having fun, just keep doing it. Like that's it. That's the whole thing. It's like if it is fun, keep going. Um, it hit a point for my partner on the podcast, Austin, where like I think it just wasn't fun anymore for a lot of reasons. And so we stopped doing it. And like we have no regrets. It was awesome, and now it's like this encapsulated little piece of our history that we have weird recordings of us having conversations about mostly work stuff. But so much fun. But no, man,
Yeah.
have no worries. Like have fun.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'm going to keep having fun. I'm having fun. Don't worry. Um, the other kind of question, and maybe it's not a question, something I want us to kind of just keep our finger on is that there's sort of this tension between software development and community. And there's sort of like, you'll notice like a distinction almost in developers who are like really connected to, I'm not going to say the community because I think the developer community is really diverse. But when they're connected to a community within the developer sphere, there seems to be like difference between someone who is like, got in at work, clocked in at 9, did the job, clocks out at 5, plays video games or rides bikes or, whatever for the rest of the day. So I want to kind of keep my finger on that because as we start to move into now the next phase of your career here, right? So you've reached the spot where money is not good anymore. You have to
Yeah.
do something new. You've now reached out to your friend and you're like, hey, can I do what you do? And you said that he was really welcoming, said that he like pointed you in some directions to kind of get started. What would you say was sort of like your approach to learning like a very new skill, like as opposed to like counseling and stuff? Very new.
Um, so I like that question a lot. But I think like anyone who's like listening to this and is like, oh yeah, like it worked for this person. I should do what they do. My approach to learning was frantic desperation, and like I I I wouldn't recommend my path. I wouldn't recommend my path. But the approach that's going to work, I think, for most people is understanding how they learn. So, like we talked about it a little bit earlier, right? Where I think the like boot camp path for some people is like absolutely stellar and like works really really well. And I think that teaches a lot of skills um, that are not maybe marketed as in the forefront as they should be for them, which is like working in groups, like learning to be mentored, not learning to be a mentor, but learning to be mentored, like how to take advice, how to like uh, have a senior review your code and like how to take that. Like that's like honestly that was something that I think was a little bit hard for me. Like I came into the career in my 30s. Like I was not used to being questioned. I was I had a career where I was in a position of authority. I'd worked my way into that. Um, Part of my career was asserting authority because I worked with teenagers, and so like there was this whole mental set of backflips I had to do to like get into a position to be like I would probably verbalize that I was humble and teachable and like all these kinds of things, but in reality, when something that I produced in order to like make money was like I saw it as being challenged. Um, it it was difficult for me to move through that, and honestly, like sometimes today it still is, right? So I wouldn't recommend my path. I would recommend uh, going with a path that you know will work for you. So like there's this old sort of idea that some people are hands-on learners and some people are what's that kinesthetic, and then some people uh, can just observe and learn, and some people read and learn. I really like YouTube. I think that works really well for me. I am now in a place in my career where like I have to just read documentation because the things that I need to know just are not. They don't exist on YouTube. Like it just isn't a thing. And a lot of times I have to just read code and understand what that does because there are things I need to know that are just not in the documentation. So like the style of learning that works for you is really what I think is going to work best. Yeah, for me it was just desperation. It was
Yeah.
do not
So
recommend.
just for the record though, what does desperate Grant learning look like?
Um, I would sit on my front patio uh, and for 4 to 6 hours in the morning, um, go through like West Boss class, go through some project that I was trying to build, like really just like, hey, I want to build a full stack to do app. Like, how do I do that? Okay, I'm gonna go and do this. Later in my learning, like I would ask my buddy, like, hey, what should I do? And he would give me some assignment. Excuse me. And one of them that he gave me that I thought was pretty funny was an ephemeral to do app, which is like you create a to do, but at some point it just like disappears. Like it's not persistent. It goes away. And so like figuring out like what that mechanic was going to be was the fun part. And like how was I going to show that to the user? Was there like a hard countdown? Was it just random? Was it, you know? Anyway, it was like that. That was kind of a fun one. But it was working for hours a day, and I had the luxury of like, there's a private practice. I work primarily with like teens and families. They didn't need help until, like the after school hours. We really couldn't keep them that late because they needed to go to school the next day. So there was like this concentrated time where I would work, and I had a lot of other time after that. And so I would do that. And then at night, I would go to whatever meetup there was. There was like, God, Austin was telling me recently, there was something like 2 meetups per day. Or no. There were, well, like 12 meetups a month. I don't remember. It was some like absurd number of, I think it was like 2 different meetups a week. So there's like a Node meetup, there was an Angular meetup, there was a React meetup, there was a Vue.js meetup, there was a front end fundamentals meetup. So like tons of meetups that I was able to go to, and I would go to every single one that I could except the Angular one.
As you should.
Right. Yes. Just ignore it. And actually, at the time, like in San Diego, because we're a big, like lots and lots of military contractors, a lot of those folks had stuff built on Angular. Like Angular would have been an okay bet for me at the time. My buddy recommended React, and just working with it versus looking at Angular at the time, I was like, this fits the way that my head works better anyway. But yeah, like that's really what that desperation looked like. And it was like honestly a relatively short period of time. It took me about 6 months of every single day doing that, going to as many meetups as I possibly could. And then, trying to balance whatever was left of my practice at the time. Like that was a rough time. Like it's kind of like there's this like bittersweetness to the memory because it turned out okay. Um, but I was also like losing uh, uh, another thing that I had built, and there's a lot of like resentment and stuff around that. So interesting. But yeah, that's what a day in my life at that time would look like.
Okay, awesome. So at this point now, you have to get your first job in tech. So, what is sort of the process that you go through? Are you using Recruiter? Are you just like putting out applications? Did you have a friend that you knew? How's that
That's a
happen?
great question. I started reaching out to recruiters. I'm like, hey, I'm I'm gonna be a top level software engineer, and like here's my resume that has absolutely nothing on it. Recruiters at that point in my life, and honestly, so like my brother has a recruiting company. Like this is what he does. He actually used to work for a company called Cybercoders, which was like really huge for a long time. Um, so like I have some knowledge about that space. Recruiters very early in your career, not super useful. Did not help me at all. Like I remember having conversations with people on the phone, and they would get off the phone with me as quickly as possible because I was a waste of their time. Um, yeah, that like it was just bad feelings. It was bad feelings. But the meetups, this is where things really turned around for me. The meetups, after every single one, there would be put your hand up if you're looking for a job, introduce yourself. If you have jobs that you're trying to find candidates for, put your hand up, introduce yourself, all that. There was a man that showed up there and put his hand up, said, "Hey, uh, I'm looking for an intern," and his company was making. It was a dog food subscription company. It was like a little startup locally here, and they worked in like a commercial kitchen. They had another business that was like delivering human food meals, and I think they were like trying to like sell the scraps somehow as like animal food, but like it's like high quality like meat scraps and stuff like that. Like it was great for dogs. So it's like realdogfood.com or something like that. And he couldn't pay me in anything other than dog food. I had a little dog at the time, so it was kind of helpful. It was fun. But I was like, look, dude, I know I need experience. These recruiters are laughing at me literally on the phone. I'll do whatever, man. And so like I showed up over there. I was like, hey, let's do this. I built an IoT device for them. So they had like a drying room, and I built an IoT device out of a Raspberry Pi and some sensors to like show them what was going on in that room. That was one of the things that I was supposed to do. And I'm like, I've never done this. It's interesting. It was relatively like simple. Um, that was fun. But their stack at the time was Meteor. And I don't know if you're familiar with Meteor. Uh, it was honestly super dope. And there is part of it that still exists, and it's Apollo, GraphQL. So that company exists because the Meteor stack on the whole, which was a full stack, kind of failed as a stack. So the front end was React, but it was like server rendered React. It was kind of weird. There was some interesting things going on there, but it all centered around like GraphQL and like building a schema. So a lot of concepts that still exist in like modern web development around GraphQL come out of like this stack that I was fortunate enough to like be exposed to. Um, they also had a couple of Drupal sites, but their primary developer was this guy out of Brazil, which is like really really common in like small startup companies. The dude was, I think they found him on Fiverr and then just like hired him outside of that. And so like I couldn't find time to train with this dude. I just couldn't get like face to face time, and it didn't have value. And I'm still like looking for a job that's going to pay me in something that isn't dog food. I eat human food. Oh, they gave us meals from their other company too. That's right. Yeah, they would like give us. Yeah, so I wasn't gonna starve. But like it wasn't money either. So I'm still looking for a job. I go to a meetup. I talk to this guy, and he has a company like uh, a medical licensing like renewal automation piece of software that like this company makes. And so like it's actually like really cool stuff. My experience in the field, like understanding HIPAA laws, understanding hospitals and how they work, all of that kind of stuff, that background was not wasted on him. Um, and so, about a month and a half after starting with this dog food company, I went and interviewed uh, for this other job, which was like an hour to an hour and a half commute, depending on if I hit traffic or not. But I was like, I don't care. I'll drive anywhere. I need a job. Went and did the interview. I think I failed pretty badly, uh, but I think he tried to hire somebody. They rejected offers, and he came around and was like, "This guy's probably teachable." And so he hired me, and he called me on the phone, and he's like, "Yeah, Grant, we want to hire you. Like, just we want to write you an offer letter, but like, we don't really know what your salary requirements are." And I'm like, I mean, I would need at least 50,000 to like leave my current job and this and that. And like, at the time, um, that that would have done it for me. And he's like, okay, that makes sense to me. I'll get a letter over to you, but just so you know, like we can't actually pay you anything less than 60,000. I'm like, oh well, great, cool. Like that's enough. Fantastic. So I got that offer letter, signed it, and he was like, "When can you start?" And I'm like, "I like anytime. Like you're paying me. Like let's go." Um, and so that was like the first real job that I had in the industry. And like that experience of like coming in with low pay expectations and being like pushed up. From what I understand, is not unique to me. Like I have heard of other people doing that. Um, had I done any kind of research, I I may have known to like ask for more, especially with that commute. But it worked out for me, and like that was an interesting kind of first foray from being paid dog food to like more money than I had initially asked for.
Yeah. So just for like to kind of put this on the timeline, what kind of around what time is like what year is this? Are we talking?
Oh man, so yeah, I had it took me about 6 months. What year? What year? What year is it now? 2024? How do numbers work? I can't count backwards. I use machines to count for me. Oh God. All right. If I have Moment.js do this calculation for me, let's do a little diff here. No, I'm kidding. This is probably 2016,
Okay.
2017. Yeah. Yeah, this is like 2017.
I'm just trying to like connect the dots. Like a $50,000 salary in 2016 is pretty low for what you were doing. So
Oh,
that's
oh,
yeah,
absolutely. No, no, for sure, for sure. Um, it took me about 3 months to find my next job. That jumped me up another, I think, like 20 or 25,000
yeah. Well, so you're at this first job.
for sure.
You're doing medical stuff. I mean, I say that the salary is low, but for what you need, the salary is incredible. Like it's not
Oh
a
yeah,
not a bad salary, right?
it was he paid me more than what I asked him for. This is
Yeah,
crazy town.
$10,000.
I know. This is nuts.
um,
Uh, yep.
so you're in this job, you're learning kind of on the go, and this one's not in Meteor. What is this in?
So they had like a huge variety of stacks going on. Like primarily what they worked on was like this big C sharp application that like ran everything. And so they had some server rendered pages that were in React. They also had some server rendered pages that were in Vue. They also had a lot of Angular stuff. And so they were like, we need somebody who can kind of reason around all of this. And I was like, I could probably figure some of it out. And I did. Like I was only there for 3 months. I remember solving like a couple of like UI issues that were just very weird choices in how they had their CSS set up. I'm like, I don't know, like whoever did this, like, do you guys have somebody who knows CSS and like how that works or can like reference that? And they're like, nah, man, we're all C sharp developers. Like, we just kind of, this is what we put out there. I'm like, okay, well, there's your problem. Like, if you're going to have UX, have somebody who knows like how this stuff works. And I was new, and CSS is not an area that I wanted to or did focus on, but I knew enough to like know how to fix like whatever that issue was. I remember that one in particular. They also had this interesting like web scraper that they had me work on. It would consume these configurations based on what website it was looking at, and then go and like scrape licensing data off of these license websites. And I'm like, yeah, this makes a ton of sense. And if you like run it on a schedule, like you're gonna have the right data. Um, but like those websites would change certain things about their structure, and so we had to update the scraper. And so that was another one of the jobs that I did there. Um, there was some strange like social dynamic stuff that went on there that I really needed to get away from. Um, that I won't get into. But like honestly, it was great. Uh, great like foray into C sharp land and like seeing what that looked like. They did this thing every Friday that I thought was super cool, which is they got like middle of the day Friday. They're like, all right, everybody stop working. You're not going to be productive anyway. Like come upstairs, and they have everybody like hack together on a project. And it's like this outside like project that's still sort of work focused, but for the most part is just kind of a side project. And so they would like pass the keyboard around and have different folks drive, and I learned a lot from that. Some of what I learned was about C sharp, but most of it was about like how they think about writing code and how they make decisions when it comes to stuff. When it comes to like solving some of these problems. So like that was really cool for me. Um, yeah, that only lasted about 3 months though.
Okay, so 3 months. It wasn't a contract, it was you decided to leave at 3 months?
Yeah, yeah, I was a full-time employee. And yeah, I decided to leave. I got an offer from uh, a company that was much closer to me. They offered me more money, which I don't think would have been a problem for this other company to come up to it. But I had some other reasons that I wanted to leave. The company that offered me the new position was just working in React, so they're rewriting their whole application, new React front end. They're using Redux, which is some like in-memory cache structure that I was really interested in working with because it just kind of fit in my head really well, and I like it. Um, and so, I took this other offer. Uh, it was also somebody that I knew from meetups, right? So all of this. So the dog food job, the job for the company that's doing this medical licensing stuff, met him at a meetup. And then this other job at Zesty uh, was another guy that I knew from meetups. He was actually um, he ran some of the meetups. Stuart Runyon, such a good guy. Stuart's the best. So yeah, he was somebody that I knew from meetups, and they hired me.
Nice. So I've saying nice way too much, so I apologize. But so when you decide that it's time to leave this company, right?
Mhm.
You're going to meetups. Are you seeking like job interviews other ways, or is it mostly just meetup focused? Like, did it just happen that you kind of happened upon a better opportunity to meet up and that's why you left? Or were you going out and seeking something?
Um, in this case, I believe it just happened. Um, I don't think I've actively, so after getting hired at that medical company, I don't think I've actively sought a position since. I think they've just kind of landed. Um, yeah, yeah, because yeah, I worked at Zesty for a while, and yeah, I don't think I was. I mean, I may have talked with Stuart, and obviously, like I accepted an interview and went and interviewed and had that conversation and stuff. But I don't think I had kind of gone and applied or anything like that. I think it was like an invitation when I was at a meetup.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that working better, right? I know like if you have to go off and do interviews, especially when you're commuting a long distance, interviewing gets a lot more challenging.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, so you've made the jump now. You're going to Zesty. Zesty's all React. This is good, right? You're back into the land where you want to be. Got some Redux. Redux is good. Love Redux. What is kind of your mindset going into Zesty? Do you feel like you're still a junior developer at this point, or would you say that you feel more like a mid-level developer when you get to Zesty?
So I was treated, and so the part of this is just Stuart Runyon is a very good person, a great boss, um, and somebody that I just generally trust. And I think if you don't have somebody like that early in your career, seek somebody out. Um, it's fortunate for me that this is somebody that I was able to work for. Uh, but he was very honest with me about my skills, what he needed from me, and where my kind of growth path was there. I think a lot of times people are taken advantage of early in their career because they're told like you're a junior for like years. Um, no, most likely you are providing so much more value than what you are compensated for. It's ridiculous. Um, and so I'm a huge advocate of trying to like gauge that accurately can be really difficult, especially if you don't have friends in the community. But like, uh, I I was hired, I believe, as just like it was such a there were 7 people. I was hired just as a front end engineer. Um, I don't think I don't think I ever got a senior title there, um, but I was taken seriously, and I was part of the conversations as we architected kind of different features and different uh as we were like rewriting code base. Like I was in on those conversations, and there were areas where I was like didn't know anything, and then there were areas where like I said, hey, maybe if we structure this a little bit differently, because like as I work with this data over here, this is going to get crazy. um and so it didn't feel so much like a junior position, and I wasn't treated that way, and I don't know if I was seen that way, and I like Stuart's the only person that I care about his opinion there, so like he was awesome, and so like I was very fortunate to have him. Um, the position, the positions prior to that, I don't know if they were junior. Um, I also don't really like the term junior. I mean, I was 30, like I'm like well into my mid 30s at this point. Like taking on a junior role felt wrong. And I think a lot of folks that were looking at hiring me didn't use that terminology intentionally. Um, I don't know if other folks are that lucky, but I certainly was, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. So I just realized that it's 11. Do you have like a hard stop? Do we need to?
Let me check the work gods here. 11:30 is my next hard meeting.
Okay, cool. I actually have
So
a meeting at 11:32. So
okay. Okay, cool.
so we'll hurry then to because like we got to get to the big question. I have one big question at the end of the interview that we have to make it to
Okay.
that one.
Okay. We can
Um,
we can
I
summarize some of this other stuff.
yeah, I also don't really like the term junior. I feel like oftentimes when we go into jobs, we have like this like opinion of ourselves. It's like the confirmation bias, right? Like you go into a job believing about yourself something, and the things that you see, you're just using to confirm that belief about yourself. Like you're going into a job and you're like, oh, I'm not qualified for this. And then you spend all of your time at the job, like telling yourself you're not qualified and finding reasons why that's true.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's always just interesting to see where people's like minds are at when they get to that point in their career. When they make that switch, maybe not from junior to mid level, but like that switch from I don't belong here to I do belong here.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And like I think Zesty is really where I found that like confidence to be like to assert myself and to so like I have strong opinions, but I hold them loosely. I think that's a good path to like effective, I don't want to say leadership, but like effective participation in development is like, hey, this is something that we've done, or this is something that I see being done that I think is effective or could be useful here. Let's try it. Or like being able to um being given the space to do that um just gave me so much confidence for positions that I've had since.
So let's move on then. So you're at Zesty, you're doing kind of what you want. You're getting really a lot of opportunity to grow here, but you don't work at Zesty now. So
That's true.
what happens? Why not Zesty anymore?
I I had a phone call come in one day, and it was a friend of a friend, and like, hey, I'm looking to hire somebody who knows JavaScript. I work at a Drupal um, at a Drupal shop, uh, but we want to explore the like the kind of Gatsby like stack type space. I'm like, all right, let's talk. And he offered me like a lot more money to come over there. I think it was like another 30 or 40 grand. I was like, I can't say no to that. Um, we, I think it was around this time that we were going to have our first kid, uh, or that we found out that we were going to have a kid. And so I don't remember the sequence of events, but it was kind of in that order where, um, okay, I know I'm going to need more money. And then, I tell Zesty, hey, look, I got this offer. I can't say no. Um, and this position entailed, not just doing React work, but working on at the time, like 2018, uh, this is the like this is the cool shit to work on, right? Like this is what everyone was a fan of. And, I would get to be at the forefront of taking this Third and Grove, like Drupal agency into like, hey, let's work on a modern stack. Let's work on the modern internet, not this, old PHP stuff. Uh, which which was really fortunate. So I got to do a few things there that I had been looking forward to. One was public speaking. So I got to speak at like Gatsby conferences and stuff like that, and got to go to conferences and got travel and all that kind of stuff. It was really cool. Um, I got to set up an entire like course for our PHP developers to learn JavaScript, but not just JavaScript, JavaScript, GraphQL, and TypeScript. And so it's like this insanely steep learning curve. Like, wow. Um, but I figured, hey, like if I could do it and I have no programming background, these folks can do it. They're smart people. And like the ones that like committed themselves and were really into it, because believe it or not, there are folks who are in the Drupal community that like absolutely hate JavaScript and hated me because I was in their company like trying to tell them that this is like their new stack. I don't think they've fully moved over even at this point. I know they got a few big contracts to do big Gatsby sites for some people out of the work that I did there, but wow, I don't know. I think about half of their, I think their team is pretty like well split now. Folks that do JavaScript work and folks that do PHP. Um, it was such a fantastic experience to like be able to go back and do like some educational content, work with people, build their teams. Like that was an aspect of work that I had missed because I loved counseling and doing group work and doing that kind of stuff. And this sort of incorporated that. So I did that for a while, and it was really fun. Um, and interacting with the Gatsby folks was a lot of fun. But then again, I get a phone call, my buddy, like, hey, I started working at this place. It's called DocuSign. Uh, what are you doing? Do you want to come work with me? And I'm like, does it pay? He's like, yeah, yeah, it's gonna be good. And so another 10 or $20,000 comes my way, and I'm like, this is awesome because it's now fully. So I was fully remote. The other team, and that was great. But there was a lot of travel. There was a lot of like, and I've got an infant at this point. But it's like you got to go to this conference in San Francisco. You got to go over here to New York. You got to do this, and I there's part of me that really love that because I love public speaking. But there's also part of me that's like, okay, I have a family now that like I need to be present for. And so, quarterly travel to San Francisco to work at DocuSign uh, was very different from like being on some sort of speaker circuit, which is where I was well on my way to be. So, January 2019, February 2019, I go to San Francisco for my first day at DocuSign. That week, uh, COVID shut everything down. So I get on a plane, come home, everything's shut down and locked down for the next 10 years. It's been
I don't
forever.
know.
Yeah. When does the world open back up? We don't know. We're just sitting in our offices. Um, but that's how I landed at DocuSign. Was again, just a friend saying, "Hey, come around." Um, and here I am. I've been at DocuSign nearly 5 years. November, December. So yeah, February. It'll be 5 years. I've been promoted all the way up through. I'm now a lead software engineer, which is just crazy to me because I still only have 6, 7 years of experience. Um, I've learned a ton, um, and it's been an eye-opening experience to work for a much larger company. They're very, very different from like little startups. Um, and it's funny because most of the people I work with, they come from startups. My my direct manager, he worked for a startup that was acquired by Microsoft, and then his team moved over to DocuSign from Microsoft. We get a lot of Microsoft folks in here at DocuSign, and so like a lot of my team, we just kind of share that same background and experience, and marvel at the difference in how things work here and there. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so here I am.
So you've made it to DocuSign. Um, so now we have to come to the big question at the end,
Okay.
which I've got to figure out. I'm still kind of like trying to figure out what the best phrasing for this question is because whenever I ask it, people are always like, "Oh, I'm just going to be retired." I'm like, "Well, that's not the answer I'm looking for. So don't say that."
Okay.
Um, um, what would you say is sort of your goal for your career? Like, where do you want the terminus of your career to be? Like, what do you want to be doing? What do you want to, like, not necessarily like what company you want to be at, but like who you are as a developer?
Okay. Uh, so no, I will probably never retire. Like that's just not a like I spent so many years like uh being self-employed but still being poor that like no, I can't catch up from that. Like come on, man. Um but what's fantastic and what I'm really excited about is the type of work that I get to do now and the like the opportunities that I have are really about uh like people, right? Where I can maybe, and this is not like going into management or like just mentoring, but it's like there's this kind of combination of like having some influence over the developer experience, having some influence over uh, kind of the structure and direction of projects, like getting kind of inside information as things like develop before they land in engineering, like that can be very impactful. And I think like staying in a technical role is definitely something that I want to do. Like I don't want to go back to like a people role or a management role, even though that like lifelong that fits my skill set much better. I don't want to do that. Um, I like being hands on. I like being technical. I like uh, the way that that feels and the way that when I walk away from work at the end of the day, if I've like accomplished something in that space, feels much different than the people space ever did. Um, it feels like more permanent because machines don't change their mind. Um, I like that. Um, so yeah, like I think that, but also like from like back in my hospital days, um, I, one of my old office mates used to say, uh, I want a role with a large salary that does not require my presence." And yeah, I still want that. But I think he's kind of describing remote work there. Like you don't physically have to be there. But yeah, like there is a lot of this, and a lot of my focus in my podcast was around setting yourself up to not burn out. Um, and I think a lot of folks like we're told that we need to have career goals, and like we just did mid-year reviews, right? And so they're asking me like, well, what are three business goals and three personal goals and like this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know if I can make this important enough to myself to even come up with that, right? And I feel like that's an okay place to be. um, I think that work should be work, and that doesn't mean we don't care about it at all, but it should not be anywhere near as important as what that pay kind of facilitates you to do with your life, right? And it's like and I get like you're going to get the patent answer of like I want to retire, or like like this whole fire movement, right? Where like people are I know people who are in that position. I know people who like could be in that position but they still work for some reason, which that like blows my mind even more. um but yeah, I think for me, I'm resigned to working the rest of my life, but I need to make it uh, sustainable, and that's the only way that I can think of like how to do that is if the wins that I have are not just my own, right? Does that make sense? That sounds really cheesy. That last little summary there, woo.
It was a good tagline, though.
I'll,
The
I-
wins
I'll,
aren't just my own. Yeah, I like that.
man.
This works out though good. You've actually an hour ago, you set me up really well to ask this final question. So when you were
It's a
talking about,
final question.
well, it's part of this question.
Oh, okay.
It'll make sense in a second, I promise.
Okay.
So at the very beginning, when you were talking about doing like group work and how it's always like really like frustrating. My wife did Department of Corrections addiction counseling,
Okay.
so I'm familiar with the group work mentality, right?
Gotcha.
And you're frustrated with this sort of like, I'm just here to do a class because I need to do a class, and that's going to make me all better, and then I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Um, and the frustration is you're here because you need to change, and this is supposed to be helping facilitate your change, not just a checkbox.
Yeah.
So thinking about kind of your goal and your desire for where you want your career to go, what are you doing right now? What are you working on or changing right now to bring you closer or to make your life more like what you're aiming for?
A good question. Um, so I am continuing to kind of learn outside of work, right? This year I picked up piano. It's very hard. I'm also learning to like read music at the same time. So like sight reading and learning to play piano. It's not an easy thing. And I think that um that has been immensely helpful in like my day-to-day career, not just because, I have this other outlet and I have several outlets. I collect them. Uh, just hobby collector. I'm sure you're familiar. Uh, it is a thing. You mentioned bikes earlier. That's not a casual mention, right?
I'm just like
Sort of.
on the fringe. I try not to, that's an expensive hobby that I just can't go too far down.
It does get expensive, and I mean you're not in Colorado anymore, man. I spent some time in Colorado riding bikes, and whew, there is not much better you can do with your time in Colorado than ride bikes around. Anyway, um, I feel that uh, collecting those things. So I have a 5-year-old. We're about to have another kid coming up here next year. Um, as I kind of collect these outlets and learn and um, take what I learn in these things and apply them to other things. This is why I feel really strongly that like people who come into software engineering from other careers, like that perspective is really really valuable, um, because that cross pollination and not just this like mono thought of like CS degree and you know all very kind of an academic approach to this versus a maybe an athletic approach, right? An athletic approach. What is that? Like, what is an athletic approach to like managing a project or like solving some problems? Maybe that's like performance when it comes to software engineering. I don't know. No, I'm making shit up. But like that is essentially like what I think is going to make that sustainable and keep it interesting and allow me to be more useful to more people as I like interact with a larger team is is taking that kind of broader experience and being able to uh, apply that to the day-to-day specifics of work. Which yeah, like I hear this and it sounds very cheesy, but I also think that it's real. I don't know. I don't believe in much, but I believe in that.
Fair. Yeah. And I mean, it does work really well with your catchphrase earlier, right? You don't want your wins to only be your own, but what better way to spread your wins out than by spreading out the avenues that you can win in?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That like it. That's a cheat code right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if
All
I
right.
can't win here, where can I?
Yeah. I'll just find someplace else. I'm not going to stop winning. Just find another road. Well,
For
you've done
sure.
it. You've made it to the end. You've answered the hardest question. Um, Man, thank you so much for coming and telling me your story. It was awesome. I loved it.
For sure. This was fun.